That morning felt normal at first. I woke up early, made myself a cup of tea, and stood by the kitchen window watching the street slowly come to life. Birds were sitting on the power lines, and a delivery truck stopped near the corner. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of morning I had learned to enjoy since living alone. I had been retired for 2 years. After decades of working, I finally had time to rest, read books, and keep my life simple. My house wasn't big, but it was mine. Every room held memories I had built carefully over many years. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was my son, Daniel. I smiled at first. He didn't call often, so I thought maybe he just wanted to talk. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered. "Hello, Daniel." "Hi, Mom," he said quickly. His voice sounded rushed, like he was busy with something else. "Is everything okay?" I asked. Yes, he replied. "I just wanted to tell you something before you heard it from someone else." My stomach tightened a little. "Tell me what?" I asked. There was a short pause. Then he said it. "I got married." I froze. "Married?" I repeated. "Yes. Last weekend." "It all happened fast," he said. I felt like the room had gone quiet. You got married?" "Yes," he said again. "It was a small ceremony." I looked around my kitchen, suddenly feeling very small myself. "You didn't tell me," I said softly. "Well," he replied, "it was kind of private. Her family wanted it that way." "Her family." I waited, hoping he would say more, hoping he would explain, or apologize. Instead, he continued, "Anyway, there's something else I need to talk to you about." My heart sank. "There were some unexpected costs," he said. "The venue wants the final payment right away." "How much?" I asked quietly. $65,000, he said, like he was reading a grocery price. I nearly dropped the phone. That's a lot of money," I said. "I know," he replied. "But you have savings. You can help me. I'll pay you back later." "Later? You want me to send it today?" I said. "Yes," he said quickly. "I already sent you the invoice." I didn't know what to say. This wasn't a request. This wasn't a conversation. Felt like a demand. "Daniel," I finally said, "why didn't you invite me to your wedding?" He sighed. "Mom, don't make this emotional. This is just how things worked out." I felt something break inside me. "I need to think," I said. "Please don't wait too long," he replied. "This is important." The call ended. I stood there holding my phone, staring at nothing. In one call, my son had married without me and asked me to risk my future. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. That same day, an email arrived that made the situation even more disturbing. After the call ended, I stayed in the kitchen for a long time. The tea I had made earlier was cold now, untouched. My thoughts kept spinning around the same words. $65,000. That was almost everything I had saved since retiring. That money was meant for emergencies, for healthcare, for the rest of my life. Not for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. A soft sound pulled me out of my thoughts. My phone buzzed. An email. I opened it slowly, already knowing what it would be. The subject line read, "Final payment required." Inside was a detailed invoice. A fancy logo at the top. A deadline in bold red letters. At the bottom, a short message from Daniel. "Please send this today. They are waiting." "No, are you okay?" "No, I'm sorry. Just instructions." I set the phone down and took a deep breath. Something didn't feel right. Not just about the money, but about the way everything was happening so fast. Later that afternoon, I went for a short walk. The fresh air helped, but my chest still felt tight. Neighbors smiled and waved as I passed by. None of them knew my world had just been turned upside down. When I got back home, there was another message. This time it was from Daniel's wife. "Hi, we're planning a small family brunch next Sunday. Daniel said to let you know." That was it. No mention of the wedding. No apology. Just a polite message, like I was an old acquaintance, not his mother. That's when I finally understood something painful. I wasn't part of their celebration. I was part of their solution. That evening, I opened my filing cabinet and laid out my papers on the dining table. Bank statements, retirement accounts, monthly expenses. I looked at everything carefully. If I sent that money, I would be left with almost nothing. My phone rang again. "Daniel." I hesitated, then answered. "Did you get the invoice?" he asked immediately. "Yes," I said. "So you'll send it tonight?" he continued. I stayed silent for a moment. "Daniel, this money is my security. You'll be fine," he said. "Nothing bad is going to happen." "You don't know that," I replied. He sounded annoyed now. "Mom, you're overthinking this. We're family." "Family?" That word didn't feel warm anymore. It felt heavy. I need time, I said. You don't have time, he replied. You're putting me in a bad position. I hung up without saying anything else. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the years I spent teaching my son about patience, honesty, and respect. Somewhere along the way, those lessons were forgotten. By morning, I knew I needed advice. Real advice. From someone who wouldn't pressure me or guilt me. Someone who cared about my future. The next call I made changed how I saw everything and opened my eyes to a truth I wasn't ready for. The next morning, I woke up feeling tired but determined. I knew I couldn't keep this inside my head anymore. I needed to talk to someone who knew me well. Someone who would be honest, even if the truth hurt. I picked up my phone and called my friend Linda. Linda and I had known each other for over 30 years. We met when our children were small, waiting outside the same school gate. Over time, we shared stories, worries, and many cups of coffee. If anyone could help me see things clearly, it was her. She answered right away. Good morning, she said. You don't usually call this early. Are you okay? Can I come over? I asked. I really need to talk. Of course, she replied. Come anytime. Linda's house felt warm and familiar. As soon as I sat down, the words came pouring out. I told her about the secret wedding, the sudden money request, the invoice, and the way Daniel spoke to me like I was causing trouble. She listened quietly, without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back and crossed her arms. That doesn't sound right, she said slowly. I keep telling myself he didn't mean it, I replied. Maybe he was just stressed. Linda shook her head. Stress doesn't excuse pressure. I looked down at my hands. He's my son. I raised him. Yes, she said gently. But that doesn't mean you owe him everything. Especially not your safety. I frowned. What do you mean? Think about it, she said. He didn't ask how you felt. He didn't give you time. He didn't explain anything properly. He just expected you to fix his problem. Her words made my chest feel tight. I didn't want to believe it, I said. But it feels like I'm being used. Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You are. And that doesn't mean you failed as a mother. It means he's making bad choices. She told me about a neighbor who had gone through something similar. It started with small requests, then turned into pressure, and finally became control. You need to protect yourself, Linda said firmly. That money is for your future, not for anyone else's image. I took a deep breath. What should I do? First, she said, don't send the money. Second, talk to a professional, a financial advisor or a lawyer, someone who deals with this kind of thing. The word lawyer made me nervous. I never thought I'd need one, I admitted. Most people don't, she said. Until they do. When I got home, I had several missed calls from Daniel. There were messages too. Mom, please respond. This is urgent. Why are you ignoring me? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed a simple reply. I need time. I'm not sending any money right now. The response came quickly. You're making things worse. I put my phone down and felt something new rise inside me. Not fear. Clarity. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to pressure. I was thinking for myself. And tomorrow I would take the next step. The meeting I had the next day would reveal something that made my heart race and changed everything. The following morning, I got dressed carefully and gathered my papers into a small folder. My hands were a little shaky, but my mind felt clear. Linda's words stayed with me. Protect your future. I drove to a financial office a few streets away from my home. I had visited once before when I retired, but this time felt different. This wasn't about planning vacations or hobbies. This was about survival. The advisor, Mr. Green, greeted me kindly and invited me to sit down. He spoke calmly, which helped me breathe a little easier. I handed him the invoice Daniel had sent and explained everything from the beginning. The wedding, the pressure, the money request, and how rushed it all felt. Mr. Green read the paper carefully. May I ask something directly? He said. Yes, I replied. Has your son explained how or when he plans to repay this amount? I shook my head. He just said later. Mr. Green nodded. That's not a plan. He turned his computer screen toward me and began showing me my accounts. Every number was clear and real. Retirement savings, emergency funds, monthly living costs. If you send this money, he said gently, you will be left with very little. You would be putting yourself at serious risk. I felt my throat tighten. So I wouldn't recover from this easily. Honestly, he said, you might not recover at all. The room felt very quiet. Then he asked another question. Does anyone else have access to your online banking? I hesitated. Daniel helped me set it up years ago. He knows the details. Mr. Green's expression became serious. Knowing and having permission are not the same thing. I strongly suggest you change your passwords today. My heart began to race. Also, he added, you should consider speaking with a lawyer. Not because something has happened, but because it could. When I left the office, I felt both scared and thankful. Scared because of what could have gone wrong. Thankful because I had not sent the money. As soon as I got home, I followed his advice. I changed passwords, reviewed accounts, and checked recent activity. That's when I noticed something strange. There had been an attempt to access my retirement account late at night. It wasn't successful, but it had happened. The email address listed was Daniel's old one. My hands trembled. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Daniel. I didn't answer. A message followed. Why can't I log in? We need to talk. I sat down slowly. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This wasn't about helping. This was about control. I opened my laptop and searched for something I never imagined I would need. Legal advice near me. The lawyer I met next didn't just confirm my fears. She warned me how close I was to losing everything. The lawyer's office was quiet and simple. There were no fancy decorations, just a desk, a few chairs, and shelves filled with thick folders. For some reason, that made me feel safer. This place felt serious and honest. The lawyer, Ms. Harris, greeted me warmly. She asked me to sit down and speak freely. Start from the beginning, she said calmly. So I did. I told her about the secret wedding, the sudden request for money, the invoice with the deadline, the pressure, the attempted access to my account. She listened closely without interrupting, occasionally taking notes. When I finished, she leaned back slightly and sighed. You did the right thing by coming here, she said. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. So I'm not overreacting? No, she replied firmly. What you're describing follows a very common pattern. My chest tightened. Pattern? Yes, she said. It often starts with urgency, guilt, and emotional pressure. Then it moves toward control. I never thought my own son would do this, I said quietly. She nodded. Most people don't. That's why it works. Ms. Harris explained my rights clearly. She told me that no one could take control of my money, my home, or my decisions unless I legally allowed it. And I hadn't. But, she added, you need to protect yourself now before things get worse. She suggested clear steps. Document everything, limit contact, change locks if needed, and never make rushed financial decisions. Being careful doesn't mean you don't love your son, she said. It means you respect yourself. Those words stayed with me. Before I left, she asked one important question. Do you plan to send the money? I didn't hesitate this time. No. She nodded. Then you should prepare for pushback. Pushback? I asked. Yes, she said gently. People who lose control often react strongly. They may use guilt, anger, or even threats. That evening when I returned home, my phone was full of missed calls. Daniel had left several messages. Mom, you're overthinking this. Why are you making things so hard? We're family. You're supposed to help. I stared at the screen for a long time. Family shouldn't feel like fear. Family shouldn't feel like pressure. I didn't reply. Instead, I wrote everything down. Dates, messages, calls, times, just like Ms. Harris advised. Later that night, I sat alone in my living room, listening to the quiet hum of the house. I felt scared but also strong, because for the first time I wasn't reacting out of guilt. I was choosing safety, and deep inside I knew something important. Daniel was not going to accept my decision easily. The very next day, he showed up at my house, and crossed a line I could never ignore. The next afternoon felt strangely heavy, even before anything happened. I was in the kitchen preparing a simple lunch when I heard a car stop outside my house. I looked through the window and my heart sank. It was Daniel. He hadn't called. He hadn't messaged. He just came. I stood still for a moment, reminding myself to stay calm. Ms. Harris's advice played in my head. Stay firm. Stay clear. There was a knock at the door. Not gentle. Not angry. Just confident, like he expected me to open it. When I did, Daniel stood there with his arms crossed. Mom, we need to talk, he said. I stepped aside and let him in, not wanting to argue in front of the neighbors. He walked straight into the living room and looked around, his eyes moving too quickly, like he was checking something. You've been ignoring me, he said. I've been thinking, I replied. He shook his head. You're letting other people get into your head. No, I said calmly. I'm listening to myself. His jaw tightened. You locked me out of your accounts, he said. Yes, I answered. Why? he asked sharply. Because you tried to access them without my permission. I was just trying to help, he said. You don't understand how stressful this has been. Stress doesn't give you control over my life, I replied. His voice rose. I'm your son. And I'm still an adult, I said. And this is my money. The room went quiet. Then his tone changed. It became softer, almost caring, but something about it felt wrong. Mom, he said. People are starting to worry about you. I felt a chill. Who is worried? Friends. Family, he said vaguely. They think you're not handling things well. I looked straight at him. Is that a threat? He frowned. No. I'm just saying things could get complicated. I stood up. Daniel, I've spoken to a lawyer. His eyes widened. You did what? I'm protecting myself, I said. And I won't be pressured. He stood up too angry now. This is unbelievable. After everything I've done for you. You crossed a boundary, I said firmly. And I won't allow it again. For a long moment we stared at each other. He looked like he didn't recognize me. Finally he grabbed his jacket. You're making a big mistake. That may be, I replied. But it's mine to make. He walked out and slammed the door behind him. I locked it immediately. My hands were shaking, but I stood tall in the quiet house. Something had changed. This was no longer just about money. That night I discovered just how far he was willing to go, and it terrified me. That night sleep would not come. I kept replaying Daniel's words in my head. The way he spoke. The way he looked around my house like it wasn't fully mine anymore. I double-checked the doors, locked the windows, and tried to calm myself with a cup of warm tea. Just after midnight I heard a noise. First I thought it was the wind. Then I heard it again. A soft click. My heart began to race. I sat up slowly and listened. There were footsteps in the hallway. Quiet, careful ones. Someone was inside my house. I reached for my phone and held it tightly, my hands shaking. The footsteps moved toward the living room. A drawer opened. Papers rustled. I knew that sound. My file cabinet. I stepped into the hallway and turned on the light. Daniel froze. He was standing near the cabinet, holding a folder in his hands. His face went pale when he saw me. Mom, he said quickly, you scared me. My voice felt steady, even though my heart was pounding. What are you doing here? You weren't answering your phone, he replied. I was worried about you. At midnight, I asked. He didn't answer. You still have a key, I said quietly. He looked away. I pointed to the folder. Those are my private papers. I was just checking things, he said, frustrated. Making copies. In case something happens. Something happens? I repeated. You're not thinking clearly, he said. Someone has to take responsibility. That was the moment everything became clear. You need to leave, I said. He stared at me. What? Now, I repeated. And you are not welcome here without my permission. You can't mean that, he said angrily. I'm your son. And this is my home, I replied. You crossed a line. For a moment I thought he might argue. Instead, he threw the folder onto the table. You're overreacting, he muttered. No, I said firmly. I'm protecting myself. He stormed past me and slammed the door behind him. As soon as he left, I locked every door and sat down on the couch. My whole body was shaking now. I cried, not loudly but deeply. Not just because of fear, but because I realized the truth. My son was no longer safe for me. The next morning I went straight to Miss Harris's office. When I told her what happened, her face turned serious. This is a serious violation, she said. You did the right thing by stopping him. She helped me take immediate steps, changing the locks, recording what happened, and setting stronger legal boundaries. This is hard, she said gently. But you are doing exactly what you should. That evening, I received a message from Daniel. You've gone too far. You'll regret this. I didn't reply. I saved it. Because now I understood something very important. Love does not mean allowing harm. But Daniel wasn't finished yet. And his next move would involve people I never expected. I thought things would calm down after that night. I was wrong. 2 days later my phone rang early in the morning. The number was unfamiliar. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. Mrs. Walker? A woman asked politely. My name is Karen. I'm calling from a local support service. We received a concern about your well-being. My heart skipped. A concern? Yes, she said gently. Someone contacted us saying they were worried you might be confused about your finances and daily decisions. I didn't need her to say his name. I'm fine, I said calmly. Who reported this? I'm not allowed to share that, she replied. but we're required to check in. Later that afternoon, there was a knock at my door. Two people stood outside. A woman holding a folder and a man with a clipboard. Their smiles were kind, but the situation felt heavy. "We just want to make sure you're okay," the man said. I invited them inside. I had nothing to hide. They asked me simple questions. How long had I lived alone? Did I manage my own bills? Did I understand my finances? I answered clearly and confidently. I showed them my organized documents, my calendar, and my bank records. The woman nodded. "You seem very capable." "I am," I said. Then she asked gently, "Has anyone been pressuring you to give them money?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. I told them everything: the wedding, the money demand, the account access, the break-in. As I spoke, their expressions changed. "This is concerning," the man said. "You did the right thing by protecting yourself." Before leaving, the woman handed me her card. "If anyone threatens or pressures you again, call us immediately." After they left, I sat down and felt something unexpected. Relief. Daniel wanted others to think I was confused. Instead, he showed them I was right to be cautious. That evening, my friend Linda came over with groceries and sat with me for a while. When I told her what happened, she shook her head. "He's trying to scare you into giving up control," she said. "But it's not working." Later that night, I received a long email from Daniel. He wrote about stress, responsibility, and how marriage had changed his life. He said he was only trying to protect the family, but there was no apology, no regret, no respect. At the end of the email, one sentence stood out: "If you don't cooperate, more people will get involved." I forwarded the email to Ms. Harris. Her reply came quickly: "Do not respond. Save everything." That word, everything, stuck with me. I stood in my living room and looked around at the photos, the furniture, the quiet space I had built for myself. This was my life, my safety, my future. And I wasn't giving it up. Not to fear. Not to guilt. Not to anyone. Just when I thought the worst was over, a letter arrived that threatened to change everything again. The letter arrived on a quiet morning. I noticed it right away because it didn't look like regular mail. The envelope was thick, clean, and official. My name was typed carefully across the front. No handwriting. No warmth. Just formality. I sat down before opening it. Something in my chest told me this wasn't going to be easy. Inside was a legal notice. As I read the words, my hands began to tremble. Daniel had formally requested a review of my ability to manage my finances and make decisions on my own. He claimed he was deeply concerned about my mental and emotional state and believed I was being influenced by others. I felt sick. This was no longer about money. This was about control. If he succeeded, I could lose the right to decide things for myself. I read the letter again more slowly. The review meeting was scheduled for the following week. On that day, I dressed simply and carried my folder close to my chest. Ms. Harris walked beside me. Inside the room were 3 officials and Daniel. He didn't look at me. They asked me questions first. I answered slowly and clearly. When they asked about my finances, I explained how I managed everything. When they asked about pressure, I told the truth. Then they turned to Daniel. He spoke about concern, about responsibility, about wanting to help. But when they asked why he entered my home without permission, he had no answer. When they asked why he tried to access my accounts, he looked away. The room went quiet. Finally, one of the officials closed the folder. "Thank you," she said. "We have enough information." As I walked out, my legs felt weak, but my heart felt strong, because I knew the truth had finally been heard. The final decision would arrive days later, and it would change both our lives forever. The decision came 1 week later. I was sitting in my living room, sunlight warming the floor, when my phone rang. I recognized the number immediately. I took a deep breath and answered. "Mrs. Walker," the woman said. "The review is complete." I listened carefully as she spoke. Daniel's request was denied. They found no evidence that I was unable to manage my finances or make decisions for myself. In fact, the report clearly stated that I had acted responsibly and that I had been under emotional pressure from another person. My son. I thanked her and ended the call. For a long moment, I sat in silence, letting the words settle in. I had protected my life. Later that day, a message arrived from Daniel. I never wanted things to go this far. I read it slowly. Then I placed my phone face down and didn't reply. Because intentions do not erase actions. And love does not excuse harm. With Ms. Harris's help, I made everything official. All boundaries were written and clear. Daniel no longer had access to my home, my accounts, or my personal information unless I chose to allow it. I changed my locks, updated my will, Listed trusted contacts. Each step felt heavy but freeing. Weeks passed. Slowly, my life found its rhythm again. I returned to my morning walks. I read books on my porch. I invited Linda over for tea and laughed without fear tightening my chest. Sometimes I thought about Daniel, about the boy he once was, about the future I had imagined for us. It hurt, but what hurt more was realizing how close I came to losing everything. Not just my money or my house, but my voice and independence. People often think strength means shouting or fighting, but real strength is quiet. It's saying no when you're expected to say yes. It's choosing yourself when guilt tries to control you. It's standing firm, even when the pressure comes from family. If you are watching this and something feels familiar, please remember this. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to say no, even to family. Love should never cost you your freedom. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself.